Hello guys, welcome back to our class here in ESci 122, your computer-aided drafting. For today's lesson, we will be discussing your drawing tools. And these tools, probably I have discussed to you on the previous lesson that I have. So basically, our goal for this lesson is that you should be able to understand, number one, how to use the ortho mode and polar tracking. I guess you are already familiar with that one because I have discussed it to you on the previous lesson I have. Number two is to use the dynamic input. I also have discussed this one to you, but wala lang ko nag-focus ani because again, my screen recorder before was not working like as it should be. Number three is to understand and to use the different functions of object snap. So, object snap is mo itong mag-snap siya at certain mga specific na mga areas you want to snap that one on, and karon tagsa-tagsaon kung unsa to yung mga functions sa itong snap. And also, we have to understand or to learn how to use the object snap tracking. So, unsa man po ng object snap tracking, unsa man po ng object snap. And lastly, we have to learn how to use hatches. Okay? Currently, naapadyoy bagyong bising, no? And nag-outdoor lang ta kay para cool ang weather. Okay? Marag init man sa sulod. Okay. So, karon ato tagsa-tagsaon ang kadong atong mga lesson objectives. So first is we should understand again your polar and your polar tracking and your ortho mode. Unsa gan itong difference anong polar tracking ug ortho mode? Sa atong lesson, di ba, when we are going to create a line, when we are using ortho mode, what will happen? Unsaon ganin nato pag turn on ng ortho mode? Mo to ang atong F8. So if we are going to press F8 right now, then naa na ta sa atong ortho mode nga setting. And if we are going to create a line when ortho mode is turned on, then basically it restricts the movement of your cursor or your line on both X and Y axis. So basically, if you are creating a line, that line will only be restricted on your X and Y axis. So at the same time, if you are going to create a rectangle, and when you are going to specify its first corner point, when your ortho mode is turned on, again, that is F8, maglisod ka og himog rectangle kung naka-ortho mode ka. Okay? Okay? Ang imong makitaan kay line. And mo na imong rectangle. Doesn't have a thickness, but it only has a width. So basically, it looks like a line. So I guess you are already familiar with that one. Okay? And now, let's proceed to your polar tracking. So ako na i-discuss before, and let's dig in deeper on how to use this polar tracking. Diba? When we are saying polar tracking, it basically snaps your cursor into certain angles. When you say certain angles, that is probably kanang mga specific yung mga angles nga imong gusto nga i-specify. So, asar ganito itong polar tracking setup dali, naa diri sa atong tapad sa atong ortho mode, which is this one. Or basically, the shortcut of your polar tracking is your F10. And karon, let's try to make a line wherein we are going to use the polar tracking setup. So let's turn on polar tracking. And also always take note you cannot turn on both ortho mode and polar tracking. If you are going to turn on ortho mode, your polar tracking will immediately turn off. And at the same time, if you are going to turn on your polar tracking, your ortho mode will automatically turn off. Okay, so take note with that. When I say, as you can see here on our polar tracking setting, when you are going to click that drop down on the polar tracking, you can see different angles. Okay? Different angles with specific increments. So as you can see, you have here 90, 180 to 70, 360. So basically, that is an increment of 90 degrees. This one, 45, 90, 135, 180. This has an increment of 45 degrees. 30, 60, 90, this has an increment of 30 degrees. So, all of this one, kung unsa imong gipili nga increment, that will be the increment of that setting that you will have. So, let's say, for example, I have this 90, 180 to 70, 360. So, basically, if I'm going to create a line, what will happen? Your cursor will snap every 90-degree angle on your drawing. So, if you are going to hover your mouse doon sa atong x-axis, then you can see this green line, nga broken line, and diha na snap ang imong 0 degrees. If you are going to hover your mouse again at the y-axis, then that is your 90 degrees and 180 degrees, 270 degrees. Okay, so that's how it works. It will snap at a specific angle nga imong specify. Now, how about we'll try 4590? Well, of course, it will snap on 0, on 45, 90, 135, 180, 225, 270, 315, and 365. 365, 360. Days man din 365. Okay, so yung ana lang. And last, try aning 1836. Well, of course, it will snap 1836, 59. Di mo ko familiar ani nga pag snap 90 and whatever. So, that is how to use your polar tracking. Want to specify a certain angle nga mo snap siya, always take note, ang kaning mga angles, it will be based from the x and y coordinates. Okay? Dili siya mo based sa unsa imong ganahan. It will base, so ang 0 degrees is on the right side of the x-axis. So, 0 and 90, 180. Okay? Understood? Now, how about you want to specify an increment that is not available there sa atong choices dere? Let's say, for example, I want to have an increment of 35 degrees. But when I'm checking there sa atong available nga mga angles, walay available nga 35 degrees. So, how are you going to have a 35 degree nga setting? So, basically, you should go to tracking settings. And then, na magkita nga pop-up. And then, if you want to add an angle, check this box, additional angles. And we are going to check that one. You have to select new. Inig new, then diha na nimo ibutang ang imong angle nga ganahan nga angle. So, let's say 35 degrees ang angle. And okay. So, now, after you have inputted the 35 degrees, it will immediately show here. You see here, 35, 70, 105, 140, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so if we're going to choose that and create a line again, it will snap on every 35 degrees of the drawing. Understood? So that is how to use your polar tracking. So again, what is the shortcut of ortho mode? The shortcut of ortho mode is F8. And what is the shortcut of polar tracking? That is F10. Okay? And if you want to specify other increment angles, all you have to do is to add additional angles. Okay? So our first objective is done. And let's proceed to dynamic input. So what is dynamic input di ay? I have discussed this one before, and let's just discuss this one again. Basically, dynamic input provides a command interface near the cursor in the drawing area. So what is your command interface? Basically, look at this one ha. If you are going to create a line, then tinigtanaw nimo dapit sa imong cursor na ay atong giingon nga dynamic input. Kaning dynamic input, it works like your command line. Okay, diba? I have discussed to you before that it is very important to check your command line always. Why? Because it is where the instructions are done. So, if you're going to make a line, your command line will ask you where to specify the first point and where to specify the second point. Nga na. So, that is same also sa imong dynamic input. It works like your command line. So, in here, when you type the command line, then your dynamic input will automatically show up. Murag siya mo automatic show up kunya. Dira sa atong dynamic input, you are asked for the first point. And as you can see, on the right side of that specify first point nga word, you can see two boxes, that 4.8670 and that 16.0704. What does that mean? Mauna ang current coordinate sa atong cursor sa anang crosshair. Okay, kung asa na nag-intersect ang cross, mauna diha ang coordinates sa anang intersection. So basically your cursor is located at 4.86070 sa x-axis from the y-axis and 16.0704 on the y-axis from the x-axis. So basically, x, y coordinates. Okay? So let's say, ako gi-specify ang akong first point karon at the origin. 0, unsaan gani ito? Comma, 0. Para makahimo ta og coordinates. Enter. So, as you can see, your dynamic input also changes its instruction. Now, it is asking for the next point. And same gihapon ang iyang gipakita. Kaganiha, coordinates ang iyang gipakita. Karon, unsa na po ni ang kaning nasa blue? Kaning 12.6237. That is the length of the current nga length sa line nga maghimo. Karon kay 13.5298. So, mo nang current nga length sa imong line karon. And kanang angle, well, of course, that is 53 degrees from the x-axis. So, mo anay pasabot ana. Okay? So, mo nang gitawag siya dynamic input because it gives you the information nga. It gives you the information. Okay. So, usahay pod ang kaning atong dynamic input na apod ni siya mga options. As you can see, dire, if you're going to click, di ba na nagpakita dira, specify next point or nya na arrow paubos. So, kanang arrow nga paubos, that means na option dira nga you can click on the keyboard kanang arrow nga paubos. And mag-click nimo na word nga ando. But depends on you kung gamito na nimo. Another example, kadtong maghimo ta og rectangle. Nanapoy arrow nga paubos. So let's check kung unsa na sila. So nagiingon nga chamfer, nagiingon nga elevation, nagiingon nga fillet, nagiingon nga thickness, and nagiingon nga width. So you have these options again. If you are going to click the down key. Okay. So that is your dynamic input. And wa pa din ako na-discuss. How can you turn on your dynamic input? Asa man siya makitaan diri sa atong diri sa AutoCAD? Well, you have different settings here. As you can see, makakita ka aning 3 bars. So this is where your customization sa imong mga functions nga naa diri magpakita. So if you are going to click this one, you can see different mga customizations in which kanisila they have different functions. And when you're going to look at here, you can see dynamic input. It is not checked. When an item is not checked, then it will not show here. So these things that are checked here, mo lang na ang nagpakita diri. And if I am going to check this dynamic input, then it will show up diri sa atong ubos. And unsa may symbol sa dynamic input? Currently, naka-turn on atong dynamic input. Why can we say that our dynamic input is turned on? Because ang atong symbol is naka-blue. So that is how we check. But asa man dapit ang dynamic input nga symbol? This is your dynamic input nga symbol, DIN mode. Okay? So basically, walay F1, F2, F3, F4, F5 ang dynamic input. But the shortcut of dynamic input is you should type D, Y, N mode. Okay? So, pwede ba siguro D, Y, N na siguro. The shortcut of dynamic input is again D, Y. O pwede na ka mag-type og DY because when you type DY, magpakita na DIN mode. Pero ang shortcut sa dynamic input is DIN mode. Or, para mas shortcut, probably DY. Okay? So, mo na ang atong shortcut. Tanawa. If you are going to type DIN mode, enter, na kay choices diri. Enter new value for DIN mode. Again, take note, if you are going to type 1, it will turn it on. So currently, naka-1 ang atong DIN mode. Naka-on ang atong DIN mode. So to turn this one off, you have to type 0. Okay? If you are going to type other values, or for example, letters, it is an invalid input. So, let's try 0. When we type 0, that will now turn off. And as you can see, if I am going to make a line, siguro, wala na nagpakita nga input first point and blah 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 chu chu chu. Understood? Kaya kan ba mo chat na ko kung magklase ko eh? Don't worry, honey. Honey, imo mata. So that is how you work with your dynamic input. So to turn it on or off, again, like this one, and when it's blue, it's turned on. And if you're going to click this one again, if it's black, then it's turned off. Or again, you can type DIN mode or DY. Let's proceed to our object snaps. So, ang kaning object snaps, daghan kay siyang functions, and these mao ni pinaka useful nga setting diri sa atong AutoCAD because snap siya at specific points, and that is very important, especially kay you cannot just estimate how close your cursor is to a point nga imong ganahan siya ibutang. Okay, let's say, for example, if I'm going to turn off my object snap and if I'm going to make a line, and kani nga line, I want to make another line, and the end of my second line should intersect at this line. If I'm going to turn off the object snap and just look, ako lang i-estimate nga nag-intersect na ni silang duha. So ako gi-click. Can I guarantee that these two lines actually are intersecting? Without object snap, we cannot guarantee that one. Because, why? If we are going to zoom this one, you can see there is a gap between them. So that is why it is important to turn on object snap for more accurate nga mga connections. So let's tagsa each object snap. Asa na to makita ng object snap nga setting diri? So basically, this is your object snap. Or the shortcut of object snap is F3. Or if ganahan ka mag-type jud, no? Ang iya pod shortcut, another shortcut is O snap. O snap. Yan na lang. Okay? So F3, O snap, mao nang object snap. Again, kung naka-turn on yung object snap, naka-blue siya. Kung naka-off, naka-black. Okay. So now I'm turning on the object snap. And you can see a drop down at the side of your object snap. And you can see here some settings kung asa na nimo object snap. So these values nga naka-check dere, these words nga naka-check dere, say pasabot ana, mao ni sila ang naka-turn on nga asa sila mo snap. Pwede sila mo snap sa endpoint, pwede sila mo snap sa center, pwede sila mo snap sa intersection, extension, whatever. Okay? Ang kaning mga naka-off, di siya mo snap ana nga mga location. Sa atang midpoint, di siya mo snap ana kay wa man naka-check. Okay? So if I'm going to check that one, then mo snap na siya. But let's understand all of this one by one. Okay? And napod tayo another way on how to customize your object snap. Kung ganahan lang jud ka nga na specific nga point lang siya nga mo snap, you can also do that one. Wala lang nimong gion ng object snap dere. First, I want to teach you how to unsay gamit sa object snap nga endpoint. Sige, ato ni off tanan. Endpoint. Okay. So, I have here a line. And I want to make another line in which the endpoint of the second line will intersect diri sa atong endpoint ani atong first nga line. So if I'm going to hover this one close to the endpoint of our first line, it will show a endpoint nga symbol. So basically, the symbol of your endpoint is a box that is colored green. Okay? So when you see that symbol, it means that your line is now snapped on the endpoint of your other line. Okay? I have here some examples. So again, if I'm going to move my cursor here, then it will snap at the endpoint. So endpoint ni siya, bisag nag-intersect na silang duha. Okay? Or I can also have this setting. If I'm going to hold shift and right click, makakita ka og mga snap nga options. So if I'm going to click endpoint, sa endpoint lang jud siya mo snap. Bisag imo na siya iduol dira, if you are going to hover your mouse close at the center of your rectangle, if you are going to click that one and kung asa nagpakita ng green nga symbol sa endpoint, diha jud na siya mo snap. Bisag how inaccurate ang imong pagduol sa imong mouse. Okay? Ang nakanindot adto adtong atong shift nya right click, diha lang jud siya mo snap. Dili siya mo snap sa uban. Dili pares anang atong ipang check diri. Kung ato ni ipang check, ato i-check na silang tanan, ato i-check. Then daghan siya mga symbols nga magpakita. And then probably na kay ma-misclick and wala na butang sa exact nga location, exact nga point nga imong taganan siya ibutang. Okay? So, mas nindot siguro gamiton ninyo hold shift and then right click para pili jud ninyo ang inyong ganahan nga asa siya mo snap. Okay? So, mo tong endpoint. Ang symbol again sa endpoint is your rectangle that is colored green. Another one is your midpoint. Well, of course, your midpoint will snap at the midpoint of a line. Okay, let's try. So if I'm going to turn on your midpoint snap, then if you are going to hover your cursor at a certain line, there shows a triangular that is colored green, and that symbol is again your midpoint. If ako na siya hover dire, magpakita na po ang midpoint na po na nga line. Dire, midpoint na nga line. Dire, midpoint na nga line. Okay? Kani, midpoint ani nga line. 3 circle. of course, walay midpoint ani circle. Ang kaning atong pentagon, well, of course, midpoint anang side. Midpoint anang side, midpoint, and whatever. Okay? So, the symbol of your midpoint again is a triangle that is colored green. How about your intersection? So, basically, musnap ang imong cursor at an intersection. Okay? So, let's say we have this one. So, makakita ka aning duha. Ato ikuan, intersection. Makakita ka aning duha ka lines nga nag-intersect na sila. Okay? Nag-intersect na sila. And if you're going to hover your mouse close to that one, then it will show the intersection symbol. Basically, your intersection has a symbol of X that is colored green. So, karon, you can guarantee that your line is connected at the intersection of these two lines. Okay? Understood? So, ganun lang. We also have this one, center. If you are going to snap at the center, well, of course, you expect that this means the center of a circle or an arc. Okay? If you turn this setting on, and if you're going to make a line, obviously, if you're going to hover your mouse close to this circle, there will show a green circle, o sa sulod sa green na a cross. So that is the symbol of your snap at a center. And if I'm going to click this one, snap na siya sa center. Bisag naa sa circle kung click ha. Or pwede pod, doon imong mouse dere and then dere ka mo click. Pwede pod na. Always take note, it won't show up unless imo iduol imong mouse sa object nga imong ganahan i-snap. So, ingani, ako gion ang center nga snap ha, pero wala nagpakita kaganiha. Magpakita lang na if you are going to move your mouse close to the object, the circle. Okay? Or, you can also use shift and then right click and then makakita ka ni center. If you're going to select that one, meaning dool nimo sa imong mouse ani, then there, it will show. Also, we have a geometric center. Unsa po yung geometric center? Well, we expect it to be a polygon. So, this means that this is the center of a given polygon nimo. So, let's say I want to snap an endpoint of my line at the center of this polygon. Well, wala man naka-turn on ang atong geometric center ani. Again, unsaon gani pag-turn on? Either we're going to click this drop down and then i-check ang geometric center. Or, another way, hold shift, right click, and then na geometric center. Unsaon po ng geometric center? Then, if I'm going to hover my mouse near this object, near this pentagon, there will, ay na magpakita nga symbol sa geometric center ana nga pentagon. You can see an asterisk that is enclosed by a green na circle. And that is the symbol of your geometric center. Ang katong center sa circle, plus sign, enclosed o green na circle. Ang geometric center, asterisk that is enclosed by a green na circle. We have a node. Saan po ding node? Ang karing node, it will snap at a node. So, pasabot ng node. Basically, a point. It will only snap at a point. Okay? So, for example, I will make a line, shift, right click, and then ato i-on ang node nga snap. Walay mo snap dere kay wa man tay point. So, question is, how are you going to make a point? Basically, all you have to do is to type point. Enter. And karon specify a point. So, let's say, ato specify diri. So, mo na itong point o mo na itong point. So, let's try daw. If we can snap this one on the node nga snap. So, node. Oh. So, that is the symbol of your node nga snap. Cross siya, ng color green, and then a circle. So, that is our node. Okay? Understand? Another one is your quadrant. So, pasabot na ng quadrant. We usually see it on a circle. So when you say quadrant, that is on the 0-degree quadrant, the 90-degree quadrant, the whatever quadrant. So let's try that one. If I'm going to make a line and put the endpoint of my line on a quadrant of a circle, wala man ato gion ng quadrant, so we can shift, right click, and then quadrant. So inigdoon na ko sa akong mouse dere, it will make a rhombus nga green. So basically this is your symbol for your quadrant. Inigdoon na ko dere sa pikas. This is also a quadrant of a circle, this one and this one. Okay, it snaps on the quadrants of your circle or your ellipse. How about this extension right here? Unsay gamit na pud ani? So basically, ani ang gamit. If I'm going to make a line and I want to turn on the extension nga snap, if I'm going to hover my mouse, my cursor close to this line, tanaw ha? Nigadto na ko sa endpoint niya. Inig-move na ko palayuan ng endpoint. Na magpakita nga apparent nga line. Ang kanang green nga line, that is your extension. It creates a snap. Ana. And wa man tay gion nga lain nga kuan, so gananon ta ko nga musnap na siya dira sa atong circle, but we cannot do that because naka-turn off ang atong intersection nga symbol. So all we have to do is to turn on intersection and then perform that one. And there we have the intersection of that apparent nga intersection. Okay? Or extension, whatever. So mao toy gamit ato, mag-extend ka or whatever. Next is insertion. Kasabot ana. So let's proceed. Perpendicular. So unsa man po yung perpendicular? Basically, look at this one ha. I'm going to make a line. And I want the second point of this line to be perpendicular to this rectangle, assuming that I have turned off my polar tracking. So if I'm going to shift right click and ato igamit ang perpendicular nga snap, nigdool na ko aning atong square dere, you can see that symbol of your 90 degrees, and that is your perpendicular nga snap. If I'm going to click that one, it will immediately snap to the 90-degree angle sa imong rectangle, sa edge sa imong rectangle ug sa katong line nimo. Okay? Ang kani atong kuan dere, ang kani atong line dere. So ato gamitan og perpendicular. So if I'm going ingani po diyang another nga gamit ha. If I'm going to hover my mouse near aning atong kuan line, nakay makit-an nga same symbol, 90-degree symbol, unya na dot. And if you're going to click that one, you can create a line nga ang iyang second point is always perpendicular to this line. Pwede po siya ingana siya paggamit. Or, diri sa atong circle, we can also use that one. You're going to make a line, right-click, and then perpendicular. So if you are going to hover your mouse again on the edge of the circle and you can see the symbol 90 degrees and then dot, deferred perpendicular di tawag ana. If you are going to click that one, then your line is always perpendicular to your circle. Okay? To the circumference of the circle. Ing adto ang gamit adto. So that is very useful, I think. How about your tangent? Your tangent nga kuan. So, basically, the tangent nga function is only applicable for curves, for arcs, and for circles, for ellipses. Okay? So, let's try to make a line. I want to make a line that is tangent to this circle right here. Now, again, to turn on your tangent nga snap, shift, right click, and then tangent. So let's say I want to make this first point and the second point of this line mo tangent unta siya ani. Oy, wala man naka-on di ay. So right click ta again and then tangent. So as you can see, inig makakita ka ani nga symbol kanang circle nga naay line sa babaw, that is your tangent nga symbol. So if I'm going to click at that point, you can say that your line is tangent to this circle. It only intersects this circle at a single point. Okay? Or another method to use your tangent, same gihapon sa atong perpendicular gigamit kaganiha, ato siguro yung itawag nga deferred tangent. We'll make a line, and the first point of the line should be tangent to this circle. So all we have to do is to right click and then click the tangent snap. And if I'm going to hover my mouse close to this circle, you can see a symbol. Katong circle nga na-line sa babaw and then ay tulo ka dot. Again, that is your deferred tangent. If you're going to click at that one, you can create a line that is always tangent to this circle. So, pwede po siya magamit nga na. Okay? So, let's proceed. I also have this nearest. Ang kaning nearest, mao niya ang pinaka-annoying nga object snap. Yung siguro, panagsalang gamiton. Sa man ay gamit na ng nearest. So, if I'm going to make a line, and then I will turn on the nearest nga snap, this is what it does. If I'm going to hover my mouse close to this, so it will show a nearest nga symbol. Ang kanang nearest nga symbol, murag na siya na X, kunya na siya line sa baba ug sa ubos. Okay? Naka-color green gihapon. So, that is your nearest nga. Ang gamit ng nearest, inigdol nimo sa imong cursor da sa atong line or anything, kaning circle or curve or whatever, i-click nimo na, then you can guarantee nga that line is intersecting at that other line. Usually, annoying na siya, kay kung naka-on na siya dire, kanunay na siya magpakita nga symbol. Kanunay na siya magpakita nga symbol. So, for example, you want to snap unta ang imong line dire sa atong endpoint, pero wa man ka nag-focus na dool nimo sa nearest. So, dira nimo na snap. So, annoying siya usahay. So, usually, we turn this one off. Okay? Pero, in some cases, you can also use that one. Especially, if you want to intersect a line to another line. Let's proceed. This apparent intersection, this is just the same sa katong ako i-discuss kagani katong extension. Okay? When you turn on this apparent intersection, basically, I want to make a line, and the endpoint of this line that I'm making, dapat moigo siya dira sa intersection aning isa o kaning isa. To make that one, I have to make an apparent intersection. So, that is the apparent intersection of that one, and if I'm going to click that, then I can guarantee that this endpoint right here is an intersection unta sa kaninga line ug sa kaninga curve. Okay? And lastly, your parallel. So, gamit ng parallel. So, basically, I have this line. And I want to create another line that is parallel to this one. So, all I have to do is to make a line. So, after I specify my first point, and then shift, right-click, then you turn on your parallel nga snap. If I'm going to hover my cursor near this line, and if I'm going back, kani siya, parallel na siya nga snap sa aning atong line direct. Okay? Saan to, sir? Nagdali maka sir, oy. Again, I'm making a line. I'm specifying its first point, and shift, right-click, turn on your parallel, and then hover your cursor close to this line, and then go back to that parallel line. And there, your parallel nga snap will show up. Okay? So, I think that's all sa atong object snap. And I hope that you learn how to use those object snaps. And you also have this object snap tracking. Unsa man po ning object snap tracking? So basically, let's say mag-on lang ta sa midpoint ug sa midpoint lang. Ato yung midpoint dari. And ato i-on ang atong object snap tracking. This is your object snap tracking. Okay? Or auto snap or your F11. So if you are going to press on your keyboard your F11, that is your object snap tracking. Or auto snap, that is also your object snap tracking. So gamit ana di ay. So for example, I want to create a line. And kani nga line, ganahan ko nga ang iyang first point naa sa intersection sa midpoint ani og midpoint pod ani. So with the help of object snap tracking, you can do that. Because if you're going to hover this one and then naka-on man to ato midpoint dito nga kuan, object snap. So I can create a line from the midpoint. And at the same time, if I'm going to hover again my mouse on the bottom part of that open nga rectangle nga akong gihimo, if ako na po na siya i-move, then na po siya another nga broken line. If I'm going to put it close, then na intersection, apparent intersection anang atong green nga mga lines. So that is the intersection of the two midpoints, and if I'm going to click that one, you can say that the endpoint of this line is located at the midpoint of this one and the midpoint of your vertical line. So muna atong object snap tracking. And if I'm going to turn it off, we can't use that function. Let's try. So naana. Oh, wala, dili magpakita. So mo to ang importante, should turn on your object snap tracking. Dira and then dira. So there you have it. Understood. That is easy. And last, what are hatches? Hatches are basically used to fill patterns inside an enclosed area. So take note of the word enclosed area because you can only use hatches if you have an enclosed area. So say pasabot na enclosed area, close siya, okay? So unsa man ang hatch? It can be patterns, it can be gradient, or it can be a solid fill. So how can you use hatch? Ay, this is your symbol sa imong hatch. Okay? And currently, if you are going to select your hatch, you can have these options right here. You can have a solid hatch. Ang solid hatch, where siya nag-fill lang ka og color. So if I'm going to select this one, so that is a solid hatch. Okay? So white ang atong hatch. White ang atong solid fill. I can also use a pattern. For example, I have this one, angle. Di lang taana. Kani H-bone or whatever. If I'm going to hover that one on the closed area, I can have an H-bone nga hatch. But the problem is, ano yung naman i-etsura, lahi man siya sa atong pakita dira. Because, dako ang atong scale. So, in order for us to have, to see saan ang atong kuan dira, hatch, we should lower down our scale. So, there you have it. You have this pattern. And also, take note, so karon ang atong scaling is 0.1. So, what if, ato itry nga 100. Inig 100 na to, you cannot see anything because naka-zoom in siya og maayo. And if gamay pud kayo yung value, 0.0001, more siya solid fill, kay naka-zoom out siya maayo. So, always take note, you should have the perfect nga scale, which is na siya diri ha. So ang perfect nga scale ani is 0.1, and then if we are going to enter, then that is the hatch. It can be clearly seen. You also have other hatches. You can use earth perhaps. Okay, let's try earth nga hatch. Man daw earth diri asa tong earth. Kanay earth nga hatch. So o nga nang dako na pud siya kayo, so ato na pod pa dako ng iyang scaling 2 imong 5. Okay, so that is your hatch. And take note, kita ani, if I'm going to put a hatch ani, so many dolomite, Oh, dulmit dai. If I'm going to make a hatch ani, take note, makita nimo nga ang kanilang siyang na-cover. Because again, iya hatch lang ang enclosed area. Enclosed area man unta ni, pero mas enclosed area man eh. Okay, so mao na ang iyang i-hatch. And then kanipod, mao na i-hatch. Okay? So take note of that. I can also use a gradient. So kung mag-hatch ko gradient, unsay pasabot na ng gradient? An increment of changing colors. So let's try gradient. Asa may gradient ani? I have here gradient nga linear. So kana. So from yellow, ni transition siya into blue. So we can use that one. You can use whatever. So and you can change the color. Siguro diri ato himong green, nya himong orange. So we can change the gradient of our hatches. So that is how you are going to use hatch. So again, take note, we have a solid hatch, you have a pattern hatch, and you also have a gradient hatch. So that is all for our lesson for this morning, and you have learned how to use the ortho mode and polar tracking. Ortho mode shortcut is F8, polar tracking shortcut is F10. You also learned how to use dynamic input. The shortcut of your dynamic input is din mode or dy. Your object snap, you learn the different object snaps, the uses of the different object snaps, the symbols of those different object snaps. And the shortcut for your object snap is F3. Or if you want to specify what to snap, all you have to do is to hold shift and right click and can choose whatever. You also have object snap tracking. The shortcut of your object snap tracking is your F11. And unsa tong gamit ana, it creates a guideline sa imong mga gipang snap nga object. Gipang snap nga points. And use it later. And last, you also learn how to use hatches. And the shortcut for hatches, basically, okay about the shortcuts hatch. So for the shortcut of your hatch, you have letter H. H and then enter. Okay, and you have 3 different hatches. Your solid hatch, your pattern hatch, and then your gradient hatch. And I hope that you have learned a lot for this lesson. And if you are familiar with this one, then I hope your memories are refreshed sa aning lesson. And that's all for this meeting. I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye, everyone.